Chapter 1 Sebastian Swann. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Brain storage. I swear I've got all my marbles here. July 7, 1990, 2 in the morning, outside London, at a manor where soft music played, Sebastian opened a window and stepped onto the balcony. He looked up at the rising sun, stretching languidly. What a perfect day, thought he. Waved a hand, and a rocking chair from the courtyard floated over. Sebastian settled into it, gently rocking to the rhythm of the music. Sebastian Swann was a fully qualified wizard, a graduate of Hogwarts, England's best magic school. He'd been out in the world for 12 years. Jeff, bring my breakfast. I want to eat it in the sun. Instantly, a house elf appeared. About 3 feet tall, with large, bat-like ears and tennis ball-sized eyes, unlike typical house elves clad in old pillowcases, he wore a small, old-fashioned but well-kept suit. Here's your breakfast, sir. And today's daily profit. Sebastian glanced at the elf, a slight frown on his face. Jeff, still wearing that old suit? How long have you had it? Swann alchemy is #1 in the wizarding world now. If you go out dressed like that, people will think I'm slumming it as the richest guy in the wizarding world. Jeff, the house elf, didn't punish himself upon hearing Sebastian's complaint, but simply lowered his head, sounding dejected. But this is the first suit you helped me make when I was little. Jeff loves this suit the most. Hearing this familiar refrain, Sebastian sighed inwardly and rubbed his forehead. Jeff had been the Swann family's house elf, and he'd taken care of Sebastian since he was a baby. House elves were magical creatures bound to serve a specific master for life, fiercely loyal, especially if treated well. Every wizarding family wanted one, but they were only found in ancient wizarding families and Hogwarts. Okay, just remember to change your clothes when you go out. Wear something new. Waving Jeff away, Sebastian grabbed his coffee, took a long sip, then picked up the Daily Prophet, settled back in the chair, and continued swaying to the music. Ah, the simple, low-key life of the richest wizard. With a sigh, Sebastian drifted into memories. He held a secret deep down. Besides being a wizard, he was also a time traveler. In his past life, he was a recent college grad. On his way to a job interview, he'd been stabbed trying to break up a robbery. Somehow, he'd caught the time travel wave. When he woke up, he was in the body of a newborn named Sebastian. Limited by his baby body, Sebastian, with his mature soul, didn't show anything unusual, continuing to eat and sleep, but he seemed less active than other babies until he was about 7 months old. He couldn't accept being a baby again, needing someone to take care of his every need, so he spent a lot of time just thinking about life. He just seemed duller than other kids, this worried old Swann and the others. They thought they'd barely saved the kid from the brink of death, and now he might not be all right. But the healers at St. Mungo's checked him repeatedly, finding nothing wrong. Finally, Sebastian's parents, grandparents, for pure-blood wizards, reluctantly ventured into the Muggle world. After a lot of trouble, they found a well-known pediatrician and had him thoroughly examined. Seeing how much his family cared for him, Sebastian finally accepted that he had traveled through time. And he genuinely embraced them as his family in this life. What had the Muggle doctor said? Sebastian vaguely understood, relying on his rusty vocabulary. Babies need to crawl more, or they'll grow up and be directionally challenged. That was ridiculous. Even though he couldn't accept the time travel at first, but after seeing the magic of the St. Mungo's healers, Sebastian was determined to become a powerful combat wizard. It'd be terrible to get lost in a battle. Crawl. He had to crawl. As soon as Sebastian got home, he started crawling all over the place, astonishing his family, especially Anton Swann, Sebastian's grandfather, who jumped for joy. He kept exclaiming, "Merlin's beard. That Muggle doctor is amazing. Even Dumbledore couldn't have done that." Sebastian, now feeling much better, perked up even more at the mention of Dumbledore's name. There was a burst of accidental magic, and he floated right off the ground. Overjoyed, Anton Swann plucked out a chunk of his beard. Dumbledore. The wizarding world of Harry Potter. Sebastian thought silently. He'd suspected something when he first saw the St. Mungo's healer examining him with a wand. Now, all doubts vanished. If Dumbledore existed, Harry Potter couldn't be far behind. This was a dream come true. Who hadn't dreamed of getting a Hogwarts letter delivered by a portly owl? The Golden Trio. Should he marry Hermione? Or stick close to Luna? Should he get involved in their adventures? Or stay away and be a background character? Voldemort was a bald, noseless monster, obsessed with a good argument. Sebastian was torn. It wasn't until his first birthday that he learned it was only 1961, shattering his fantasies. He'd only seen the movies once before traveling, so he had a vague memory of the plot, the books. Forgotten, 1961. The Golden Trio's parents probably weren't even born yet, let alone Hermione and Luna, who were from a later generation. Sebastian chuckled at the memory, then sighed again, the start of a new era. With a wave of his hand, a letter floated from the bedroom. The wax seal on the back was broken, displaying a lion, snake, badger, eagle, and a capital H surrounded by the animals. He opened the letter and read, "Dear Mr. Sebastian Swann, regarding the position of Hogwarts Deputy Headmaster, you are required to attend an interview. The interview will take place at 7 a.m. on July 2nd. Please come prepared. You may use flow powder to enter the school. Location, Hogwarts Deputy Headmaster's office, or arrive at the school gates in advance, and staff will collect you. Sincerely, Deputy Headmistress Minerva McGonagall." Sebastian smiled, stood up, and finished his coffee. Hogwarts, I'm coming home. Chapter 2 Childhood. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ever since his first birthday dreams went up in smoke, Sebastian's been wrestling with a whole new level of anxiety. Even though he was just a kid, he could piece together what was happening based on the movies he'd seen. Thought it was the lead-up to the Second Wizarding War, wartime, Voldemort at his peak. Sebastian, who already considered himself a Swann, was freaking out about his family. What was the Swann family supposed to do? What if Voldemort took one look and thought, "Hey, the Swanns are pretty good." A respected old pure-blood family, traditional alchemists, basically walking gold mines. They're not too big, not too small, just right. What if Voldemort decided, "I think the Swann family and the Death Eaters are connected"? What if they got strong-armed into joining up? Should he try to be a prophet? He quickly scrapped that idea, way too risky. Sebastian only knew of two prophets. One was locked up in Ermengarde by Dumbledore because he was too powerful and messed with the natural order. The other was so weak that Dumbledore practically hid him at Hogwarts for protection. Being a prophet was a no-win situation, especially for a kid. There were only two ways it could go. First, everyone would think he was a joke. Who'd trust a little kid's predictions? Back in his previous life, he was a law-abiding citizen, playing fortune-teller. Not his thing. He couldn't actually predict anything, and he'd be exposed instantly, getting labeled a liar that young. He'd never recover. Second, people might actually believe him, but 9 times out of 10 his predictions would be about the bald, noseless guy. Secrets don't stay secret forever. Voldemort would definitely come after him. Sebastian wasn't trying to end up like Harry's parents. He hadn't even held a wand yet. That's when he thought of the system, every time traveler's best friend, so he started his daily ritual, calling out for the system. He was dedicated, working 365 days a year, no breaks. He was so devout, he could swear he wasn't even this religious when he prayed back in his old life. Time travel was real, wasn't it? So why not a system? But it was like the system was dodging the bill, or Merlin just didn't care. 2 whole years went by, and by his 3rd birthday, Sebastian still hadn't gotten a peep from any system. He had no choice. After a lot of thought, Sebastian came up with 2 main strategies. First, he'd work his butt off. Second, he'd use his family's money. When it came to hard work, Sebastian wasn't afraid of a challenge. After all, he came from a country known for its competitive spirit. Plus, he was born into a pure-blood family in the magical world, with a huge collection of magical books and a solid foundation. He'd been studying hard since he learned to read. If he were in the same grade as Hermione, he'd definitely give her a run for her money. If he could become as powerful as Dumbledore, why would he be scared of Voldemort? As for money, the Swann family had plenty, but they couldn't just throw it around. So Sebastian divided the Death Eaters into 2 groups, the Zealots and the Fence-Sitters. Then, he'd hang around his grandfather and share his ideas. The old man was blown away. He'd wondered why the kid was so quiet, always reading instead of playing. Turns out, the Swanns had a genius on their hands. That's how the Swann family managed to stay away from the fanatics while maintaining friendly business relationships with the fence-sitters. Keep your friends close, and your enemies closer, and those fence-sitters wouldn't dare mess with the Swanns. Anton Swann was powerful, and his wife was a retired auror. Those fence-sitters were probably worried that the Swann family would outshine them if they joined the Death Eaters. They were the last people who wanted the Swanns to join, so, with the help of these friends, the Swann family avoided Voldemort's attention. Even though Merlin closed one door, he left a window open. The Swann family's bloodline had some serious talent. Just like Slytherin's descendants could speak Parseltongue, the Swann family had incredible magical perception. That's why the Swann family were so good at alchemy and potion making. They shifted their focus to alchemy. For Sebastian, extreme magical perception was the perfect fighting talent. Within a 10-meter radius, he could clearly sense everything magical, wizards, creatures, alchemical items. Within that range, if a wizard cast a spell, he could sense their magical intensity, the speed of magic flowing in their wand, the unique pattern of their wand movements, the direction their wand was pointing, and so on, and his perception range would keep expanding as his magic grew. Sebastian jokingly called his magical talent observation hockey magic. Thanks to that talent, he could often perfectly replicate other people's magic flow and casting patterns. Once he successfully cast the spell, he could tweak it to make it his own. Sebastian often lamented that there was no unique magic in front of him. Fire shield protection, fiend fire. He could do it all. Plus, when his dying soul merged during the time travel, it created a 1 + 1 = 3 effect. Sebastian's magic grew 3 times faster than a normal wizard, putting him at the top tier. By the time he started Hogwarts at 11, his magical power was stronger than most adult wizards. Combined with 8 years of studying magic theory, he knew more magic than most 7th graders, so Sebastian became the favorite of every professor, except for one, Dumbledore. Why? Slytherin. Sebastian would never forget how loud the Sorting Hat shouted it. Too bad. Sebastian's first choice was Gryffindor. He wanted to join Gryffindor, get in Dumbledore's good graces, and become his successor. But now he was stuck in Slytherin. The Second Wizarding War had just started, and Voldemort was causing chaos. Slytherin was practically a breeding ground for Death Eaters. With such a promising student, Dumbledore was worried he'd go down the wrong path. Sebastian didn't discriminate against the different houses. Just look at his family. Grandfather Anton Swann, Slytherin graduate, grandmother Jane Swann, Hufflepuff graduate, dad Sam Swann, Ravenclaw graduate, mother Shirley Swann, Gryffindor graduate. House discrimination. He wouldn't dare. His family all hoped he'd join their house, and they each bet 100 galleons on it. His mother didn't participate. She thought Sebastian looked like trouble since he was a kid, and he wasn't a Gryffindor at all, but that was okay. Sebastian's philosophy was the same no matter which house he was in. If you're reasonable, I'm Dumbledore. If you're not, I can be Voldemort. Chapter 3 Reunion of Old Friends. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After changing into a sharp-looking suit, Sebastian checked himself out in the mirror. At 6'1", he was definitely imposing. His thick, black hair and knife-edged eyebrows gave him a piercing gaze. His blue eyes, like the deep ocean, sparkled with a light that could be intimidating. A strong, straight nose and full lips completed his handsome features, making his whole face look sculpted. He had great skin and looked more like he was in his early 20s than 30. He possessed the poise and confidence of a mature man, mixed with the youthful energy and audacity of someone younger. Sebastian flashed a smile, revealing perfectly aligned white teeth. Still got it. If I went to Hollywood, Tom Cruise and Leo would have to move over. Sebastian reached the manor gates, glanced towards Hogwarts, and muttered, "Flow powder? Too messy for today's look. So apparate it is." After a moment of intense squeezing, Sebastian stood before the gates of Hogwarts. The iron gates were impressive, reinforced with powerful magic to protect the students inside from disturbances. Stone pillars flanked the gate, each topped with a winged boar. Sebastian checked the time on his magical watch, 9:30 a.m. Right on time for the pickup. Sebastian gazed at the distant castle and couldn't help but sigh. Hogwarts is still as magnificent as ever. Before he could finish, the gates slowly swung open, and a wizard emerged. He was thin, with sallow skin, and lank, shoulder-length black hair that looked greasy and hung around his face like a curtain. He wore a plain black robe of unremarkable fabric. A breeze caught the hem of his robe, making him resemble a giant bat. Seeing Sebastian outside, his lips twisted into a slight smirk. He spoke slowly and deliberately, with a hint of sarcasm. Well, well, well. If it isn't Sebastian Swann. The wizarding world's richest man graces Hogwarts with his presence. How illuminating. Sebastian sized the man up, then raised his wand to chest level. Severus. You got something to say? Severus mirrored the gesture, wand held upright. Old rules. A silent understanding passed between them before they simultaneously fired off spells. Jellylegs Jinx. Tarantaligra. Within seconds, spells flew between them. They both understood not to use any serious attack spells or protective charms. Instead, they relied on nimble footwork to dodge and their wands to deflect incoming spells: tickling charm, babbling curse, weakening charm, stinging hex. The two transformed into masters of petty hexes, each spell streaking through the air with colorful light and a whistling sound. The barrage of minor hexes rained down, creating ripples against the protective spell on the Hogwarts gates. Snape was on the defensive, narrowly avoiding each spell while seeking an opening to counterattack. He couldn't afford to be careless. He hadn't really dueled in years. His applications to teach defense against the dark arts had always been denied by Dumbledore, so he'd shifted his focus to potion making. But he didn't want to embarrass himself, especially after so many years, and they both wanted to send a little message. Besides, quick-fire petty hexes with no protection. This was a dueling game they'd invented back at Hogwarts. It tested a wizard's basic dueling skills: footwork, timing, spell accuracy, stable magic output, precise magic control, stamina, etc., etc. They had entered Hogwarts together, were both sorted into Slytherin, their last names both started with S, and were assigned the same dormitory. Snape knew more spells than half the 7th years when he first arrived, but this roommate knew even more. They often debated magic and sparred, which slowly grew into a deep friendship. Not to mention, this guy understood him, helped him woo Lily, and stopped him from saying those horrible words in time. Snape was always grateful. Snape knew in his heart he couldn't beat Sebastian. Since school days, Sebastian's magic had always been stronger, and the guy seemed to be a natural duelist, always coming up with advanced techniques and training exercises. Unprotected small evil curse quick attack was his invention. But I'm not going to lose. Snape thought bitterly. He refused to lose to this arrogant Swann, a Swann who loved to show off. He desperately tried to recall his past dueling experience, and after narrowly escaping several dangerous situations, he finally managed to hold his own. Just as he caught his breath, he heard Sebastian yell, "Having fun, Severus?" "I'm about to crank things up." Feeling the sudden acceleration of the attack frequency, Snape panicked and cursed inwardly. Show off. How did he do it? Even though he'd worked at the Ministry of Magic and was an Auror for the first couple of years after graduation, once Voldemort fell, he'd gotten sucked into the family business. After becoming the richest wizard in the world, he traveled to the Eastern Wizarding World. After returning from the East, he plunged into the Muggle world again, wanting to take advantage of the fall of the Soviet Union to make billions. When did he find time to exercise? How was he so good? Just as Snape was about to break, a silver-white, phoenix-shaped Patronus appeared between them. Then Dumbledore's somewhat weary voice echoed from above. "Mr. Swann and Professor Snape, please stop. The gates of Hogwarts cannot withstand your enthusiasm. Professor Snape, please escort Mr. Swann to my office immediately. I await you there." Knowing the duel was over, Sebastian laughed and put away his wand. He walked over to Snape, clapped him on the shoulder, and started towards Hogwarts Castle. "You're losing your edge, Severus. I didn't even have to try." Sebastian teased. "Humph, I don't recall a single spell actually hitting me." Hearing that, Sebastian chuckled. "Severus, your mouth is still as sharp as ever. I bet Fiendfire couldn't burn that mouth." Snape clenched his fists. He took a deep breath, calmed himself, then stopped. "Sebastian, you've achieved success and wealth. Why would you choose to be a mere professor at Hogwarts? Don't be so serious." Let's walk and talk. Once your material needs are met, you need to meet your spiritual needs. Why Hogwarts? I'll explain it all when we meet Professor Dumbledore, that way, I don't have to repeat myself twice. Then why did the school board add a vice principal position? I asked Headmaster Dumbledore to add a deputy headmaster position, but he wouldn't agree. Hey, it's within the rules. Money talks, and the school directors all backed me. All roads lead to Hogwarts, baby. I don't think Professor Dumbledore is thrilled about it. As they talked, they reached the 8th floor of Hogwarts Castle. In front of the headmaster's office, the door was guarded by a particularly hideous stone gargoyle. Snape gave Sebastian a good luck with that look, then stepped forward and spoke the password. Cockroach Cluster. Chapter 4, First Meeting with Dumbledore. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The principal's office was a spacious, circular room, furnished in a way that gave it a unique and beautiful feel. On a carved table with slender legs sat various strange alchemical items and antique silverware, clearly valuable at a glance. In one corner, a slightly worn shelf held a battered, patched-up wizard's hat that looked pretty ragged, but don't let appearances fool you. This wasn't just any old hat, it was a genuine antique, its value beyond measure in galleons. This was Godric Gryffindor's hat, one of Hogwarts' founders. From 1,000 years ago, after the school was founded, Gryffindor took out his hat, and he and the other 3 founders, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin, infused it with their ideas. Now, at the sorting ceremony before the start of term feast each year, first-year students line up alphabetically by last name and take turns wearing the sorting hat, which then sorts them into their respective houses. Portraits of former headmasters and headmistresses lined the walls, each snoring softly in their frames. As Sebastian and the others entered, the portraits opened their eyes, looked at Sebastian, and began to murmur amongst themselves. One wizard with a goatee called out loudly when he spotted Sebastian, "Well, look who it is. Slytherin's finest graduate." That this was Phineas Black, a former Slytherin headmaster himself. Sebastian bowed to the portraits before turning to the wizard behind the desk, Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore was leaning back, gently rubbing his temples with long, slender fingers, as if he had a headache. Hearing the portraits, Dumbledore opened his eyes, their blues so bright they seemed to pierce right through you. A fleeting trace of fatigue vanished. "Sebastian, welcome, welcome," Dumbledore said, standing and opening his arms in greeting. "I've been expecting you. Though, perhaps you could have been a bit gentler on the front gates. They're over 1,000 years old, you know." Sebastian stepped forward, giving Dumbledore a light hug. "You wound me, Professor Dumbledore," he said playfully. He glanced teasingly at Snape. "Half those spells aimed at the gate came from your professors here at Hogwarts. Besides, those gates have stood for a millennium, blocking countless powerful curses. A few little spells couldn't possibly do any real damage." Sebastian chuckled and straightened up, the Swann family crest on his chest gleaming brightly. "Professor, don't forget what our family does. If you're not happy with how the Hogwarts gates look right now," he continued, "just say the word. I promise to replace them with a brand new set, and widen the entrance while I'm at it. It'll be beautiful and grand, guaranteed. And it's on me. Consider it my donation to dear old Hogwarts." "Ah, you were always a skilled negotiator," Dumbledore said, smiling and shaking his head. "Please, have a seat." Sebastian quickly added, "Professor Dumbledore, could Professor Snape stay as well? He expressed interest in my arrival." Dumbledore nodded. "I have no objections. Severus, please, sit down." Once everyone was settled, Dumbledore produced his wand and asked, "What can I offer you to drink? Pumpkin juice? Tea?" He winked. "Or perhaps a mug of butterbeer." Sebastian reached into his magically expanded pocket and pulled out 2 black bottles, placing them on the headmaster's desk. "I recommend this, Happy Water. It's all the rage in the Muggle world. And in July, it's the perfect way to cool down." Dumbledore looked at the bottles with interest, a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. "Coke. When I was younger, I visited America and met a Muggle. His name was Jacob, and he was a kind, brave soul. He helped us a lot, Dumbledore said with a knowing smile. Some people even jokingly referred to him as the Chosen One. He wanted to treat me to this drink, but unfortunately, something came up, and I never got to try it. I'm going to savor it today. Dumbledore reached for one of the bottles. Sebastian quickly said, Professor Dumbledore, if you'll wait just a moment. Without any visible movement from Sebastian, the Coke bottle became coated in white frost, emitting a faint cool breeze. Then, Sebastian stood and poured a glass of Coke for everyone. Exquisite wandless magic, Dumbledore said, watching Sebastian return to his seat with admiration. A freezing charm, perfectly controlled. Remarkable. Dumbledore praised, glancing at the Coke in his cup. He noticed it was fizzing, making a crackling sound. He raised the cup to his lips and took a sip, so refreshing. Sweet. The bubbles were bursting in his mouth, creating a crisp, tingling sensation. Dumbledore instantly loved this muggle drink and took another sip. Cool. What a shame. I'm only now, at my age, discovering such a delightful beverage, Dumbledore said with a touch of regret. Hearing this, Sebastian immediately frowned. Who said you're old? Wizards tend to live long lives, and the more powerful the wizard, the longer the lifespan. The former headmaster, Dip Pet, took on the position of principal when he was over 200 years old. You're not even 110, which is still the prime of life for a wizard. And judging by your appearance, you don't look a day over 60. If you like this stuff, I'll send you a whole truckload of it this Christmas. Dumbledore chuckled. You still have a way with words. The atmosphere between Sebastian and Dumbledore grew warmer, the initial awkwardness fading with each shared word. After a few minutes of chatting, Dumbledore sat up straighter, leaning slightly forward, interlacing his fingers, and resting his arms on the table. His sharp eyes stared directly at Sebastian through his half-moon spectacles, and he asked seriously. Sebastian, we're all aware that you engineered the creation of a new deputy headmaster position here at Hogwarts through the Board of Governors. As headmaster, I believe I have the right to decide whether to hire you. From what I understand, thanks to your efforts, Swann Alchemy has become the wealthiest company in the British wizarding world, if not the entire global wizarding community. And since you graduated, you've been acquiring properties all across the Muggle world. In the past 2 years, you also ventured into Russia's Muggle world and took advantage of the political unrest there to amass a fortune, and then proceeded to buy real estate all over the globe. The thing is, you've already achieved immense success and undoubtedly have numerous businesses to manage, both in the wizarding and Muggle worlds. So what is it that motivates you so strongly to come to Hogwarts? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Your most honest thoughts. Chapter 5 Sebastian's Ideal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dumbledore had done his own thorough investigation. Despite Dumbledore's intense gaze, Sebastian didn't feel intimidated. He was certain Dumbledore hadn't used legitimacy on him. Even if the old man was the most powerful wizard of the 20th century, Sebastian would have sensed the intrusion immediately. He wasn't trying to pull one over on the old man, first, out of respect for Dumbledore, second. From his experiences in 2 lifetimes, Sebastian had learned that honesty was the best policy. Sebastian sat up straight, extended his right hand, and gestured. Before I answer your question, I need to clarify something so there's no misunderstanding. Seeing Sebastian's serious demeanor, Dumbledore and Snape both pretended to listen intently. Sebastian cleared his throat. Even though I'm the richest guy in the wizarding world, he said, I can honestly say, I'm not in it for the galleons. Hearing this ridiculous statement, Snape nearly lost his composure. Hold it together. Snape clenched his fists, knuckles white. This guy, such a drama queen. If Dumbledore wasn't present, he'd hex Sebastian, or just punch him right in the face. Seriously? Nobody talks like that. Sebastian knew the gravity of his words, so without giving Dumbledore and Snape a chance to react, he continued, earning galleons has never been my dream. My focus is solely on the magical world. Professor, haven't been to Knockturn Alley in a while, have you? I'd like to show you a memory, if you're willing. Sebastian pulled a pensieve from his pocket. This pensieve was an alchemical creation of the Swann family's ancestors. Because of the rare materials and high cost, only a few existed. Sebastian recalled seeing one in the headmaster's office, but it was gone. Dumbledore probably took it. He touched his wand to his temple. A faint silver light appeared, forming two thin strands. The strands flickered, as if holding some mysterious power. He waved his wand gently, and the strands floated toward the pensieve, spreading like ink in water. Seeing that Sebastian was about to share a memory, Dumbledore and Snape were intrigued. They wanted to see what he would reveal. Sebastian gestured and plunged his face into the pensieve. He found himself in a dark alley. Strangely dressed wizards walked to and fro, most of them looking worse for wear. Sebastian stood in the alley as the passers-by walked through him. These were memories, after all. Another Sebastian, younger and more sharply dressed, with a stern expression and wand in hand, walked down the alley. The other wizards kept their distance, eyeing him with a hint of fear. Anyone who frequented Knockturn Alley could tell this young wizard was not to be messed with. Sebastian turned to the two who had followed him. This memory is from my first trip to Knockturn Alley, right after the Second Wizarding War. Look at the crowd. It's not as big as Diagon Alley, but it's not small. Do you think everyone here is a dark wizard? That without waiting for a response, Sebastian motioned for them to follow his memory. In the memory, Sebastian continued walking down Knockturn Alley until he reached some stalls. He spoke to one of the stall owners who didn't bother to hide his face. The stalls were just cloths spread on the ground to display goods. Dumbledore looked at the stall owner talking to Sebastian and exclaimed, "Bilbo." "That's right, Bilbo Henry, a Muggle-born Hufflepuff who graduated from Hogwarts long before my time and now works at Swann Alchemy." "I'm surprised you remember him, Professor," Sebastian said. "I remember every student who graduated from Hogwarts. I have a good memory and recall each of their names," said Dumbledore. Sebastian said, "I came to Knockturn Alley to recruit wizards for Swann's alchemy, which is how I met Bilbo. Bilbo told me that his OWLs and Newts weren't good, with only 2 decent grades. His grades made it hard for him to get a good job. But he didn't want to become a dark wizard and use magic for illegal purposes. Having experienced magic, he didn't want to return to the Muggle world. He didn't want a quiet life in the mountains. Houses in Knockturn Alley are cheap. So he used his savings to buy a house and make low-quality potions to get by. He told me that even though Knockturn Alley had a bad reputation, he could still live like a wizard there." Sebastian turned to Dumbledore. "He didn't do well in school, but he didn't become a dark wizard. Look, in this Knockturn Alley, there are many Bilbos, not just dark wizards. Environment changes a person. If you stay here too long, you become a dark wizard, and there's no turning back. Bilbo was lucky to meet me before he fell. We at Swann Alchemy focus on people's strengths, not just their grades. But I was too late for many others. They were already lost. This is Knockturn Alley, after all. Every year there are young wizards graduating who are like Bilbo. It's a shame Swann Alchemy doesn't have enough jobs to hire them all." Sebastian looked at his memory and said, "Professor Dumbledore. Many people crave the magical world. Many would rather believe they didn't get a Hogwarts letter because the owl got lost. I wonder what they'd think if they saw this side of the wizarding world. Besides, the Muggle world is developing rapidly now. The wizarding world, on the other hand, has barely changed since I was a kid. It's so stagnant. Bilbo and his friends chose the wizarding world for the excitement and convenience of magic. But what about 10 or 20 years from now? What if the young Muggle-born wizards find that life in the wizarding world isn't as exciting or convenient as life in the Muggle world? What will they choose? What if the half-blood wizards, or even the pure-blood wizards, feel the same way? I shudder to think what will happen then. Professor. The British wizarding world is like a big tree. Hogwarts is the root of that tree. Something is wrong with the tree. I could ignore all this, Sebastian said to Dumbledore. After all, even if I slept all day, gold galleons would still flow into the Swann family's vaults. I could live a life in the Muggle world that ordinary people can only dream of. But I am a wizard. And a true Slytherin. I have my own ambitions and aspirations. With great power comes great responsibility. I love the wizarding world, so I've been working to make it more exciting and vibrant. But I can't do it alone, or even just Swann. So I decided to go back to Hogwarts and start at the roots of the tree. It starts with the children. Let's bring more people together to change the wizarding world. Let this tree grow stronger and more vibrant. Sebastian smiled calmly at Dumbledore. That's my answer. Professor Dumbledore, are you satisfied? Chapter 6 Interview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dumbledore was touched by Sebastian's words. He already thought highly of the young man, but he hadn't realized Sebastian possessed such a strong sense of purpose and such noble aspirations. With great power comes great responsibility, Dumbledore murmured, echoing Sebastian. You're truly impressive, Sebastian. I can tell you mean every word. Everything you've done at Swann Alchemy shows you're dedicated to making the wizarding world a better place. Actually, you've been working towards that goal ever since you arrived at Hogwarts. Forgive my past misjudgment. I always thought you were just trying to buy people's affection. I owe you an apology. Sebastian was surprised Dumbledore would apologize and felt a little awkward. He gave a shy smile and ran a hand through his hair. Dumbledore was right. He definitely wanted to win people over, and that's exactly what he'd been doing since he first stepped onto the Hogwarts Express. Sebastian vividly remembered finding a compartment with only 2 kids inside. After introducing themselves, he learned the names of the black-haired boy and the red-haired girl, Severus, Snape and Lily Evans. He was in the same year as them. No wonder it felt familiar, they even looked like the characters in the movies. He hadn't recognized them immediately because it had been so long. He only remembered the broad strokes of the plot and had mostly forgotten the finer details. This was Snape, the future potions master. What was the most valuable thing in the 20th century? Talent. Sebastian, ever mindful of Swann's alchemy, made a decision on the spot: early investment, win them over, recruit/collaborate. He offered Snape the full package. Besides, even though it wasn't explicitly shown in the movies, a school as big as Hogwarts surely had more than just a couple of bright sparks. Sebastian launched his friendship-building mission as soon as he arrived. Soon, everyone knew the name Sebastian. After all, the guy was handsome, generous, and a Quidditch star. Even though he was a Slytherin, he was always smiling and friendly. Unlike most pure-blood wizards, he didn't look down on muggleborns or half-bloods. On top of that, he was powerful but humble, quick to defend the underdog, and always fair. Before long, he'd made friends in every house, and students often sought him out to settle disputes, earning him the nickname Arbitrator. The rapid growth of Swann Alchemy and its recruitment of top talent were largely due to the groundwork he laid at school. Sebastian considered how he probably looked to Dumbledore. Pureblood, Slytherin, always trying to buy people's loyalty. He checked all the boxes. He probably looked just like Lucius Malfoy. No wonder Dumbledore had been suspicious of him. At least the misunderstanding was cleared up, and everything was good now. Dumbledore gazed at the slightly embarrassed Sebastian, lost in thought. The image. It was so familiar. He'd been just as idealistic when he was young, joining the equally idealistic Gellert Grindelwald in their fight to overthrow the Statute of Secrecy, for the greater good. Such a pity. Now that this young man had chosen Hogwarts, what would he do? Dumbledore felt a mix of worry and anticipation. He worried that the young man's haste would do more harm than good to the wizarding world. After 2 wizarding wars, it was too fragile for more upheaval, but he was also hopeful. What changes would this young man bring to Hogwarts and the wider world? The young man was right. The wizarding world had stagnated for too long and needed a shake-up. Just look at how Swann Alchemy had exploded with energy under Sebastian's leadership, flourishing in magical communities around the globe in less than a decade. He'd met many wizards who worked for Swann Alchemy, and their reactions to the company were remarkably similar: happy and proud. In some ways, the young man had already proven himself, hadn't he? Maybe he deserved a little more trust. Dumbledore nodded slightly and said to Sebastian and Snape, "Let's get out of the Pensieve for now." Back in his office, Dumbledore settled back into the headmaster's chair. He seemed much more relaxed than before, leaning back and looking almost lazy. "So, Sebastian, what are your plans now that you're the vice principal?" Or, what's the first goal you want to achieve? Solid. At least 98% certain. Seeing Dumbledore's reaction, Sebastian felt a surge of excitement. Time to capitalize on this. Hold on tight. Sebastian composed himself and said. My first goal is to tear down the walls between the houses. To unite the 4 houses of Hogwarts. Seeing the frowns on their faces, Sebastian elaborated. I know it's a tall order. After all, the houses have been rivals since the school was founded. Especially with the influence of Voldemort, the pure-blood ideology has taken deep root in Slytherin. That's made Slytherin almost completely isolated from the other 3 houses. It's going to be tough to get them to come together under these circumstances. We can't just lecture them. They're at an age where they rebel against everything. Tell them something twice, and they'll dig in their heels. They're also incredibly sensitive and self-conscious. So, I've decided to help them find a common enemy, one that's tough enough. If they don't want to get their butts kicked and become a laughingstock, they'll have to learn to work together and act as one. First, we'll rally some of the most respected students in each house. I believe that by setting an example, we can inspire more and more students to unite. And once that happens, the barriers between the houses will naturally disappear. As for the specifics. Seeing the 2 men hanging on his every word, Sebastian smiled and kept them guessing. Dumbledore smiled kindly and said. Sebastian, your ideas are excellent, but try not to wear an old man like me out. Please, go on. Chapter 7 Recruitment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sebastian didn't say anything, but pulled out a booklet about half a finger thick, bound with regular Muggle paper. He stood and handed the booklet to Dumbledore. The plan details everything, including the steps and reasoning behind them. I think you'll understand once you've read it. Please give me feedback as soon as you can, good or bad. That way, I can make adjustments. Good communication is key to success. Dumbledore took the Muggle-style plan with interest and opened it to the first page, where a large word was printed. Quidditch. Dumbledore looked stunned. He hadn't expected Sebastian to start with Quidditch, but then again, the young man was quite the Quidditch star. He was even a seeker for the England national team at the World Cup this year. They were in the top 8 with a good shot at winning the whole thing. Ever since he became the seeker for the Slytherin Quidditch team in his second year, Slytherin hadn't lost a single game, not one. Every game was a total blowout, usually over in under 20 minutes. Many opponents cried and said they never wanted to play Quidditch again. Sebastian even caught the golden snitch in just 2 minutes during his first try, breaking the Quidditch record. Dumbledore still remembered Professor McGonagall's exclamations and complaints, so now, he was starting with Quidditch. What was he up to? This was a dirty move, and here he was, keeping the old man in suspense. Dumbledore was itching to know. He flipped to the second page and started reading. What a brilliant idea! Dumbledore exclaimed, nodding as he read. That's right, not bad. Seeing Dumbledore's reaction, Sebastian subtly raised his eyebrows at Snape, as if saying, how about that? Snape remained expressionless, giving no reaction at all. He knew better. Any reaction would only inflate the other guy's ego. The best defense was to ignore him. That show off. Dumbledore only read 2 pages before closing the plan, his smile widening. I completely understand your idea, Sebastian. I'll look at the rest of the details later. I have to admit, you're a genius. I see the potential for breaking down barriers, and the odds of success are actually pretty good. Sebastian straightened up. So, Professor Dumbledore, could I possibly get the position of vice principal? After all, without the authority of Hogwarts deputy headmaster, I can't even get the first step of the plan off the ground. Dumbledore smiled, walked around his desk, and came to Sebastian. He opened his arms. Welcome to Hogwarts. From now on, you'll be in charge of communication with international schools. Sebastian, excited, stood and gave Dumbledore a quick hug. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Professor Dumbledore. If you have any questions about the plan, please reach out. I'm still young and need guidance. I only dare to move forward with the support of the greatest wizard of this century. Once you've given the green light, I'll get started. Dumbledore chuckled, patted Sebastian on the shoulder, and said, I believe in your ability. Sebastian, I'm asking you as an old man. Whatever happens, please be patient with the wizarding world and the children. Don't try to rush things, okay? Hearing Dumbledore's request, Sebastian said solemnly, I know trust is a precious thing. I won't betray your trust. Sebastian then took out a gift box and handed it to Dumbledore. Professor, this is a gift for you. It's filled with various Muggle candies and chocolates. I hope you like them. If that's all, I'll be going. Dumbledore's eyes lit up, and he took the gift box, joking, believe me, you couldn't have picked a better gift. Goodbye, Professor Swann. Goodbye, Professor Dumbledore. Sebastian walked out with Snape. At the door of the headmaster's office, he turned around playfully. Professor, have you ever watched a snake hunt? Sebastian made a snake-like gesture with his right hand, paused, then suddenly lunged forward. I'm good at waiting for the right moment too. After all, I'm a true Slytherin. With that, Sebastian left the headmaster's office. A true Slytherin. Not bad. Dumbledore smiled, opened the gift box, grabbed a candy, unwrapped it, and popped it in his mouth. Coconut. After leaving the principal's office, Sebastian seemed lighter on his feet, almost giddy. Success is sweet. Severus, come over to my place tonight and we'll drink till we drop. Sebastian leaned closer to Snape, put his palm to the right side of his mouth, glanced left and right, and said conspiratorially, yesterday, 2 Aurors from the Ministry of Magic got hit with some dark magic by a dark wizard. So? Snape glanced at Sebastian and took a couple of steps away. The Aurors are seriously injured. It's some pretty weird dark magic. The other healers are stumped. Only Mia can help, but it's slow. She's removing the dark magic bit by bit. So, Mia probably won't be home tonight. You won't get your teeth kicked in if you come over. Otherwise, why would I invite you? Sebastian said, being a jerk. Severus glared at him, then walked away without a word. He thought back, Mia Ellen, Sebastian's wife now, Mia Swann, she started Hogwarts the same year I did, she was Lily's roommate and used to be called the most elegant lion in Gryffindor. Mia and Lily were close. Mia was almost named Lily's child's godmother, but Potter was against it, so it never happened. Her father was an Auror who got hit with dark magic and died a slow, painful death. That's why she was so dedicated to studying black magic while in school, determined to develop as many counterspells as possible. Right after graduation, she went to St. Mungo's Hospital and became a healer in the Cursed Injuries ward. Since they both specialized in black magic, Mia earned Lily's understanding, while she disliked him. How unfair. Plus, she's a lioness, why does Sebastian get all the breaks? That's even more unfair. Snape felt a pang of jealousy. Hey, Sebastian shouted from behind. You grumpy old bat, let's hang out tonight. I have to visit the other professors this afternoon, so you don't have to come with. Snape paused when he heard Sebastian's shout, who would want to hang out with you? Show off. Snape thought to himself, then picked up the pace and left. Chapter 8 Visiting the Professor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That old bat. Still so arrogant. Sebastian thought to himself, he was making the rounds of the professors, some of whom had taught him back when he was a student at Hogwarts, others had only gotten their teaching positions after he'd graduated. Sebastian wasn't about to skip anyone. Luckily, the students were just a few days into their holiday, and the professors were still around. A couple of days later, he'd probably only catch 2 or 3. After all, professors have lives too. Before heading to Hogwarts, he'd carefully considered each professor's personality and picked out gifts to match. Why half-ass it? They'd be colleagues soon, so it was crucial to get off on the right foot. Sebastian checked his magical watch. It was past dinner time. Shoot. He'd spent way longer talking to Dumbledore than he'd planned. He should head over to McGonagall's first. His paperwork was still waiting for her to sign off. Yep. True Slytherin, through and through. A clever Slytherin always knows how to work a room. If Sebastian had to pick his favorite professors, McGonagall would top the list. She always maintained a stern demeanor, commanding respect from almost every student and teacher, yet, she treated the young wizards from every house equally, never playing favorites with the Gryffindors just because she was one herself. Sebastian rolled his eyes internally, thinking of a certain professor who could learn a thing or two. Why couldn't everyone be more like McGonagall? Professor McGonagall's office was located on one side of Hogwarts Castle, a spacious and bright room. The tall, arched windows offered views of the Quidditch pitch in the distance and the Black Lake below. Knock, knock, knock. Sebastian rapped on the door and waited. Come in. Professor McGonagall's distinctive voice called out. He pushed open the door and saw an old desk in the corner, complete with a copper pen holder and a stack of Transfiguration journals. Professor McGonagall sat behind her desk, engrossed in a copy of Transfiguration Today, square glasses perched on her high nose bridge, her eyes twinkling with wisdom. Her long hair was streaked with gray, pulled back into a severe bun that added to her commanding presence. Professor McGonagall was delighted to see Sebastian. She stood up and gave him a warm hug. He was her favorite student. From the moment he arrived at school, Sebastian had shown incredible talent for Transfiguration. He'd even joined her Transfiguration Club in his first year. Over the years, Sebastian had published numerous articles in major Transfiguration journals, bringing Professor McGonagall years of glory in academic and educational circles. Sebastian, long time no see. It's so good to see you. Her eyes shone with warmth and joy. She looked him up and down, then said, You've gotten taller, but you're still so handsome. Seeing her reaction, Sebastian couldn't help but say, Dear Professor McGonagall, I've missed you so much. He pulled out the gift he'd carefully chosen and presented it to her. I compiled a Russian wizard's manuscript on Transfiguration. Some of the concepts are cutting edge and I think you'll find them inspiring. Besides, Sebastian winked, I also got you a big bag of catnip. Professor McGonagall laughed. Okay. I love them both. She pulled Sebastian over to sit down and said happily, Congratulations, Sebastian. We're colleagues now. I'll send your official employment papers by owl. Sebastian couldn't hide his smile. Professor Dumbledore must have told you already. I hope I can count on your guidance. After all, I'll always be your student. Professor McGonagall nodded approvingly, then leaned in conspiratorially. Almost forgot to congratulate you, Sebastian. Thanks to your efforts, the England Quidditch team is in the top 8. We haven't had results this good in years. And since that first Quidditch World Cup game, you've held the record for catching the golden snitch in under 2 minutes. You're an international superstar now. The Daily Prophet gave you that catchy nickname, 2-Minute Man. I still have the paper somewhere. Because of you, we have a good chance of winning the championship this year. Sebastian was internally screaming. Goddamn 2-Minute Man. Sebastian was livid. The Daily Prophet *. Swan Media would take them down, sooner or later. Looking at Professor McGonagall, as excited as a kid about Quidditch, Sebastian didn't interrupt, but smiled and listened. Ever since you gave me that magic TV made by Swan Alchemy, I haven't missed a single game. Look, Professor McGonagall pointed to the side, and Sebastian saw a bunch of magical images stacked on top of the bookshelf. They were all Quidditch matches recorded by Swan Media. If I have the time, I'll use this magic TV to watch the live broadcast of the game. If I'm too busy, I'll just buy the recorded magic videos and watch them on this TV. Professor McGonagall looked worried. By the way, Sebastian, if you're busy with work, what about Quidditch? Sebastian pounded his chest. Don't worry, Professor McGonagall, it's just a little Quidditch match. Out on the field. No one knows the location of the golden snitch better than me. All I need is one day on the day of the competition. After chatting with Professor McGonagall for a while, Sebastian reluctantly said goodbye. Leaving McGonagall's office, he swung by Professor Flitwick's and gave him a rare spell manuscript. then he visited Professor Sprout and gave her some rare herb seeds, making the Hufflepuff head extremely happy. Sebastian also met with Professor Quirrell, presenting him with a thick magic photo album filled with pictures Sebastian had taken in the Muggle world. At this point, Quirrell was still teaching Muggle studies. His office was filled with dried wildflower specimens he'd collected on his travels. Professor Quirrell enthusiastically described the origin of each flower, his words filled with a love for life. Sebastian was surprised. He was nothing like he was in the movies. So sunny. And he was still teaching at Hogwarts. Shrugging off his doubts, Sebastian headed to the next professor's office. After visiting all the professors, it was getting dark. Sebastian arrived at Snape's office. He threw open the door and swaggered in, shouting, "Come on, Severus. We have some serious catching up to do tonight." Chapter 9 Dinner Party. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Swan Manor, Snape was taken aback. "This is your new place?" He thought to himself, "Some dog." The manor was a wild mix of classic and modern, the grand exterior clashing with glass and steel. The garden was a vibrant explosion of color, flower beds overflowing with fragrant blooms. Snape took a closer look. Besides the modern stuff like a pool and gym, there were also magical additions, an olary, a greenhouse bursting with weird plants, and what was that flat space over there? A dueling arena? Seriously, this guy is such a dog. "Come on, Severus, I'll show off my skills tonight." Before Snape could even take it all in, Sebastian dragged him into the main house. After changing, Sebastian rolled up his sleeves and headed for the kitchen. "Make yourself at home, Severus. Anything you want. French? Chinese? Italian?" Snape swallowed. The stinky swan actually had a knack for cooking. Back in school, he practically lived in the kitchen making midnight snacks, and Snape had definitely benefited, enjoying some great food. It had been years, and now he was actually looking forward to it. Snape hesitated, then just said, "Whatever." Sebastian didn't need to be told twice. Chinese it was. He'd been overdoing the French and Italian lately anyway. Time for a change. British? Forget about it. Sebastian pulled out his wand and gave it a flick. Light exploded, and the knives and ingredients seemed to dance. The knife whizzed through the air, each slice a carefully choreographed move. The vegetables practically bounced under the blade, as if guided by magic. Soon, everything was prepped perfectly, and the whole kitchen buzzed with energy. Sebastian had no problem with cooking. Using magic to control the process was just another form of practice. Before long, a table groaned under the weight of delicious food, the aroma making Snape's mouth water. After they sat down, Sebastian produced a bottle of wine in a white porcelain bottle. "Here, this is what you gotta have with Chinese. It packs a punch." Sebastian grinned, filling Snape's glass to the brim. "If you like it, I'll send you home with a few bottles." Snape didn't usually drink. He was a potions master, and brewing required precision. Alcohol was a no-go, but this was a reunion dinner, and Stinky Swan was one of the few people he could actually talk to. He was ready to loosen up. The liquid in the glass was clear, looked promising. Like the real deal. The Stinky Swan was still generous, never held back the good stuff. He brought the glass to his nose and took a sniff. A unique aroma filled his nostrils. Smelled good, too. Time to see how it tasted. Snape raised his glass to Sebastian, bottoms up. Instantly, a fiery sensation burned from his throat to his stomach. He started coughing violently. Cough, cough, cough. He looked up to see Sebastian wearing a wicked grin. Jerk. This Stinky Swan. Setting him up. Snape tried to say something dignified, but Sebastian cut him off. "Hey. Severus, why are you all red? Can't handle it? Need me to switch you to juice or Coke? Juice. Coke. How embarrassing." Snape thought grimly. He flicked his wand, enlarging his wine glass to the size of a fist. Then he cleared his throat. "I think a glass this size is more fitting for our status, don't you? Of course, if someone prefers a shot glass, I won't judge." Sebastian laughed, pleased with himself. "Got a needle that's Sundra. Provocation always works. Time to back off." Sebastian enlarged his own glass, refilled both of them, and said with a smile, "Don't just drink. Eat. A sip of wine with every bite, that's the key." After a few rounds, Sebastian put down his glass and said seriously, "Severus, I have a goal. I'm going to make Slytherin great again. When school starts, I'm cleaning house. You're gonna have to work with me." "How?" Snape wasn't committing to anything. "It starts with you." Sebastian glared at Snape. For the past 2 years, every Hogwarts graduate studying alchemy at Swann has said the same thing: a certain professor is notorious. Notoriously nasty. Notorious for playing favorites. Giving Slytherin points for no reason. Taking points from everyone else. You can't do that. Sebastian was disappointed. He slapped his thigh. Ever since you-know-whose ideas started spreading, Slytherin has become a dumping ground for scum. I fixed some of that when I was in school, but look at it now. I haven't even graduated that long ago. What has Slytherin become? Dreaming of making Slytherin great with these current students is just that, a dream. We're lucky the place hasn't been shut down. From now on, I'm gonna be the face of Slytherin. Like how everyone thinks of Gryffindor when they hear Dumbledore. I want people to know what Slytherin is really about. These students, they'll take time. I have the patience. You, on the other hand, need to rein it in. Take a page from McGonagall's book. Hearing Sebastian's rant, Snape's mouth twitched, but he didn't argue, he just took it. Seeing Snape's reaction, Sebastian softened his tone. "I know you're not great with people. Becoming head of Slytherin so young, and as a half-blood, a lot of people resented you. It hasn't been easy for you." Sebastian shifted gears. "Leave it to me from now on. And don't think I'm trying to take over." Hearing Sebastian, Snape felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He wasn't great at this stuff. He raised his glass and took a sip. "I don't care about power. Do what you want. I'll help. Count on it." Chapter 10 Drunk. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sebastian sighed with relief at Snape's assurance. Good. Just cooperate. That even though they had a solid relationship, Sebastian knew that bypassing Snape to directly handle Slytherin could breed resentment. Snape was, after all, the head of Slytherin in name. It was always best to talk things through beforehand. Relieved, Sebastian joked, I know, you're all heartless. Your heart's already full anyway. Just Lily, right? Don't blame me for twisting the knife, Severus. It's just Muggle desensitization therapy, Sebastian thought to himself. How can you move on if you're stuck in the past? Cheer up, Star. Speaking of Lily, Sebastian felt a twinge of helplessness. Though many details from the original timeline were fuzzy, some things remained crystal clear, like Wormtail's betrayal. But back in school, he and James were sworn enemies, so anything he said would have sounded like he was trying to stir up trouble. And diving into deep conversations with someone you just met was always a bad idea. Still, remembering Mia's connection to Lily, Sebastian had tried to help her. He'd gotten Mia to give Lily a bunch of protective charms and potions, including a pair of vanishing cabinets and a vial of Felix Felicis from Snape, but Lily didn't make it, and if she had, Snape wouldn't have been such a mess. The thought gave Sebastian a headache. After becoming roommates with Snape, Sebastian had started subtly working on him. At first, it was tough, but Sebastian soon discovered the secret to making Snape listen. Lily wouldn't want you to be like this. That every time he said that, Snape would freeze and practically beg for guidance. With Sebastian's influence, Snape slowly gave up on the dark arts and started studying potions with Lily. He steered clear of the pure-blood extremists and even learned to respect Muggleborns like Lily, dropping the mudblood nonsense. Understanding Snape's pride, Sebastian also arranged for plenty of alchemy orders to come from Swann. The Galleons helped Snape improve his wardrobe, and with Sebastian's advice, he even started looking sharp. Sebastian himself had met Mia Allen, his wife, while playing matchmaker for Snape and Lily. Everything was heading in the right direction. Unfortunately, Snape had terrible luck. during Christmas break in their 6th year, he secretly went to Nocturne Alley, hoping to find a rare potion on the black market as a birthday gift for Lily. Instead, he ran into Voldemort and a group of Death Eaters. One of the Death Eaters, a recent graduate, recognized Snape, who was already gaining fame for his potion skills, and introduced him to Voldemort. Desperate to see Lily again, Snape was pressured into taking the Dark Mark and joining the Death Eaters. Lily was understandably horrified and cut off all contact with Snape. Snape was devastated and constantly asked Sebastian for advice. Sebastian could only tell him to play the part of a harmless potions geek and never kill anyone for Voldemort, or he'd never have a chance with Lily. He also introduced Snape to Lucius Malfoy, who led the Fence-Sitters and the Death Eaters, asking Lucius to look out for Snape. As for the Death Eater who'd recommended Snape to Voldemort, he supposedly died from accidental poisoning not long after. Hearing Lily's name, Snape took one gulp after another. Sebastian pulled out an old magical notebook and handed it to him. "What's this?" Snape mumbled, sounding utterly defeated. "An ancient magic notebook I found during my travels. I translated it. It's a story about a mysterious, fantastical world," Sebastian said gently. "Fantastical?" Snape looked confused. The word was new to him. "Yeah. The story's about a wizard who gets attacked by his enemies, and his soul ends up in this place called the Twilight Zone. Because he misses his family, his soul breaks free of the fog and returns to his body. And just like that, he comes back to life." As Sebastian told the story, Snape's interest grew, and he looked less miserable. Sebastian continued, "The story doesn't say whether his body actually died or was just dying when he was attacked. Later, I asked my grandfather if the Twilight Zone was real. He's read countless magical books. He said he remembered reading in some ancient tome that death was just another great adventure. After someone dies, their soul goes to a place called the Land of Illusion. Courageous souls choose to move on, while those with unfinished business wander there." Snape was completely engrossed when Sebastian asked him a question that visibly shook him. "Severus, do you think Lily's soul is wandering in that hazy fantasy right now?" Snape's chest tightened. He tugged at his collar. "Damn, why can't I breathe, Sebastian continued, "you know, Lily must be worried about her son, Harry. She bravely stood in front of Voldemort and sacrificed herself to save him. While it's not written down anywhere, let's just imagine for a moment. Can those wandering souls see the real world? If they could, she'd want to see Harry grow up and start a family." Sebastian paused, then went on. "Severus, do you think Lily's spirit can see you as you are now? Would she be proud, or would she be disappointed in the professor you've become?" With each question, Snape's heart sank. He didn't have an answer, he didn't know what to do with himself. His hand shook as he grabbed the bottle, poured himself a full glass of wine, and tossed it back in one gulp. "What the hell, is this wine bad? It burned like hell just a minute ago. Now, it just tastes bitter, Snape stood up and staggered toward the sofa. Sebastian's voice followed him. "I got you a special gift, too. Shampoo. The brand Lily used to use in the Muggle world. Damn it. I feel dizzy. What did that idiot Swann just say? It's hard to hear." "Lily, Snape collapsed face first onto the sofa. He felt a spell cushion his fall, gently setting him down. Before he lost consciousness, he whispered two words, just loud enough for himself to hear. "Lily."